Okay, I'm going to attempt a run through the kind of what are now considered the mainline Doom games in Nightmare mode up until Doom Eternal, the most recent Doom game, um, which I will switch to Ultra Nightmare. Nightmare is traditionally the hardest difficulty, dating back to the first Doom game, which is what we're staring at right here. And then in Ultra Nightmare, um, you basically can't die. No matter how far you get through the game in Ultra Nightmare, um, the end of your campaign, if you die for any reason. I've never beaten the first level of Doom Eternal on Ultra Nightmare, so I'm just going to consider it a victory if I even get through the first level. I haven't done it yet, so could just not happen. But the other games shouldn't be a problem. We'll see. It might take multiple attempts. Um, Anywho, and while I'm doing it, I'll just chatter on about these games in case there's things that you haven't heard before. And yeah, this should be fun. Okay, so this is Doom 1. It was released in 1993 by id Software. They were well, I mean, they're still around, but pretty different company these days. But they were an independent developer that was based in a suburb of Dallas, Texas called Mesquite. I grew up in Dallas, so they were kind of hometown pride in some ways. Yeah, I kind of vividly remember when this one came out because it was already kind of a name at that point because they had released Wolfenstein 3D previously, which was a corridor shooter like Doom, but more primitive. You were basically fighting Nazis in World War II. So it was just fun running around, kind of 3D castle environments, shooting Nazis. And so then after a disastrous Dungeons and Dragons campaign that the developers were playing, amongst themselves, they decided to switch to fighting demons, thus Doom. The story so far in that Doom 1 was not actually released at retail. We'll go ahead and start playing too. We'll see if I can keep up the chatter while I'm trying to play. This might be a bad idea, but we'll see. We'll find out. You're a space marine who was shipped off to Mars because you punched out your superior officer after they ordered you to fire on civilians, and you got basically assigned as mall cop for or security guard for this company called the Union Aerospace Corporation, who was experimenting on the moons of Mars with basically a portal or a teleporter. And so, they were trying to send things between the moons of Mars, and then one day one of the moons vanished, and basically everybody in the base on Phobos, the moon that did not disappear, got possessed, and then you find worse things once you arrive there. And so that's where we are. We just arrived because the backstory. All this was like in a text file in what was called the shareware version of Doom, because you were supposed to distribute, if you enjoyed it, the first episode, Need Even the Dead, for free to anybody who was interested. You basically would copy 4 floppy disks and hand them around. So I was in high school at the time, so everybody was handing around Doom disks to install it and play it. And if you liked it, you would send away, you would mail a check off, and get the other 2 episodes that were available in Doom 1 at the time, Shores of Hell and then Inferno. So I remember it pretty vividly because also I'm going to be rambling, so hopefully I don't have leave anything dangling. But anyway, I just remember people kind of breathlessly coming up to me in school and in Boy Scout meetings and whatnot, and 1.0 is out. And like basically telling me about the entire game before I had a chance to play it myself. So my hype levels were already just like maxed out. And obviously Doom became a phenomenon, and the rest is history, so to speak. So this is the first level, usually given the designation E1M1 for Episode 1, Map 1. I think the actual name of it is Hangar. It was designed by this guy named John Romero, who was kind of one of the two very prominent developers / designers at it at the time, the other being John Carmack, who was the engine programmer. Both very colorful characters. I think there's supposed to be like some kind of like TV movie about their time at it together at some point. But well, I guess in kind of pandemic time, who knows that'll ever happen. But anywho, so this is actually not how Doom looked when it came out. It did not. There was no such thing as a widescreen monitor. This is what's called a source port called GZ Doom. Because it released the source code to Doom a few years after. It was still in the late 90s, I think. A few years after it came out, because they were just like, here's the game, go nuts. So the fan community basically ported Doom to in every platform in existence and kept doing that. I mean, like these days you can find like Doom on toasters and smart fridges and stuff, but the other thing the fan community did was keep improving the engine. So now you have like, this is actually using OpenGL, rendering, something that wasn't available for home PC at the time. Home PC games were not using OpenGL anyway. So also widescreen resolution. The sprites are a little look a little nicer, improved them a little bit. Normally I like playing one of the source ports that mimics the look of the game as it came out, but I think this will look a little better on stream, so we'll use this one. I think that's most of what I want to say. The music playing is kind of the most iconic Doom music. You'll hear it get echoed over and over again over the course of this. It's called Doomsgate. It was by this guy named Bobby Prince. Other Doom music isn't as memorable, but Doom Eternal in particular has a lot of nice echoes of or homages to different tracks. I'm a Space Marine. As far as I know, everybody's dead. I don't know why, and let's see what's up. Oh yeah, this is Nightmare mode. So in the original Doom games, Nightmare mode meant that basically all the monsters are going to start respawning, so that all your hard work gets undone very quickly. So crap. Alright, they're going to respawn probably before I get out of here. Nope, I timed it long enough. So it's the hardest difficulty plus, you can't dilly dally. Alright, I'm fighting these guys that are possessed humans. There's two varieties, as I think you can tell. One that just shoot like a rifle clip at you. There's my first demons. And then once I have a shotgun, they're like, crap, I already respawned. Alright, we're gonna get out of here. Alright. Not doing too bad. Okay, that should be the end of this level. Whoa! Yeah, that fireball's a lot faster. So, as you probably have already guessed, hell is invading, so those brown dudes chucking fireballs are called imps. They're kind of a staple Doom enemy. This is like a nice little overworld map. Each episode in Doom 1 has it, and then they just abandoned that after every subsequent Doom game, or in every subsequent Doom game. But yeah, it is what it is. basically, like, you fight your way through the Bobo space, and, you know, just keep running into worse and worse demons, getting more and more different weapons, and find out that you go through the portal, you figure out where Demos went, and you start fighting your way through Demos. It's a base that at the start kind of looks like this, but is, you know, kind of getting more and more hellified. Then eventually at the end of episode 2, you find out that Demos is orbiting Hell. Oops. And so the episode 3, Inferno, you fight your way through Hell, and end up fighting this spider mastermind and beating it, and ending up back on Earth. Like the end game text is like, you were too tough for Hell to contain, so you can go home. And turns out Hell is invading Earth while you were busy. So let's go to Doom 2, Hell on Earth. So Doom 2, Hell on Earth came out barely a year later, October '94, if memory serves. And this dude on the right is what's called a cyber demon, kind of another iconic Doom enemy that gets used again and again and again in all the sequels, because it was the boss of episode 2. It was actually kind of a better boss than the Spider Mastermind. It was more fun to fight anyway. So they made it, you know, kind of the cover art character. So Doom 2, while being a sequel, didn't really change much from Doom 1. Still the same engine. This is actually running the same executable as Doom 1. Because basically, like, once the source code was released, the community just kind of combined them. And it's got more weapons, you know, new monsters, you know, kind of a handful of new ones, but, you know, for the most part, it was and the developers were a little bit, you know, experimented a little bit more with the levels. But for the most part, it was just more Doom. I think the other notable thing about it was actually available at retail. So kind of all through '94, you know, like anytime anybody wanted to play Doom, they either played the shareware or on rare occasions. For the most part, like, people were just playing the shareware over and over again. But, you know, there were people who played the full 3 episodes after paying for it. But if you wanted to go into a store and buy Doom, you couldn't. You know, I think there was, like, people distributing shareware in stores, so, like, you could just go buy the 4 discs instead of having somebody, like, you know, copy it for you. But you wanted, like, a full Doom game in one of, like, you know, the electronic stores at the time, like, you know, Babbage's or Electronics Boutique, wasn't an option. So everyone was eagerly awaiting Doom 2, because you could then just go in a store and, you know, buy a full Doom game. And also people just wanted more Doom. So there was a lot of hype for this. So we're going to cut over here and grab the chainsaw. So this is not a new weapon. It just wasn't in the first level of Doom 1. The nice thing about it is that it doesn't use any ammo. So you can just use it to your heart's content. But you have to be in melee range, which is usually a bad idea. You don't want to be in people's faces when you're fighting them in this game. But, you know, judicious application, it can, you know, again, save you on ammo when you're running low. It's also pretty powerful in its own right, you know, if you're, you know, again, in melee range. Other thing is, you notice these people are, the possessed, you know, zombie men are just kind of staring off into space. So Doom's AI, you know, wasn't sophisticated. You know, this was 1994. So they would basically only activate if they saw you or heard you. And so this kind of idle noise is just for the benefit of the player. The monsters don't know it's there. But as soon as I rev the chainsaw, they will hear it. And probably some of their buddies will start running around the corner because they will hear motion. So yeah, this map was designed by somebody named Sandy Peterson, who designed a lot of the levels of Doom 1 and 2. And his levels were generally considered, you know, really, really fun, but not as nice looking as the ones Romero made. But, you know, I like Sandy Peterson's sort of pretty, you know, solid Doom levels. And other fun thing about Doom is one of the first games where, like, even before the source code was released, the community was able to make maps and modifications for it. So there were all kinds of like weird Doom levels that people had made that you could just download off like a what was called a bulletin board system, a BBS, where you would just hook up your computer to a modem, dial a number, and usually like some friend would be running a BBS, and then people would be distributing these Doom levels, trying to make their own, and that continued through kind of most of its games up until kind of the more recent ones, where it's just really, really difficult to, for someone working at home to put out something that looks like, AAA, movie quality, a game level. But there was a nice period of time where it didn't take a ton of effort to make something that was kind of fun to play. So yeah, let's see what happens here. Oh yeah, Doom and Doom 2 are kind of what are called 2.5D engines. So you can kind of see as I'm moving around, you can't see like other sides of these guys. If they start moving, obviously you can see other sides of them. But for the most part, most objects in the world are always presenting the same side to the player. So if you see that armor off in the distance, it's just kind of always turning to face me. So the level geometry is 3D, obviously, but a lot of the stuff are just, you can kind of think of like cardboard cutouts, so they're just like sprites that are just always rotating to face the player. Again, monsters do have other angles, but you kind of only see them if they're trying to maneuver around you. And then, so there's future games where like they actually became 3D proper all the way through. But obviously you're working with very constrained hardware at the time. Like Intel 386 processors, and graphics processors that were dedicated for that within a PC that a game would be using. That came later. So there we go. All right, there we go. Alright. You just killed your buddy, did you? Yep. Alright. This is a very short level, which is fine. It's nightmare mode, I don't want to spend a ton of time here. Also, they're going to come back in short order. Maybe I can... This is probably a mistake. This is a mistake. Alright, we're just going to leave. I was thinking about trying to shot. Probably disappointed. There's like a whole... There's an arena I skipped, but there's not much to it. But... yeah, so... Doom 2, very fun. Like I said, story-wise, this was supposed to be set on Earth. You're basically like, fight your way through levels trying to stop the invasion, and then that necessitates you having to go back through hell, of course. And then, as far as you know, you stop the invasion and everything's fine. Until it isn't. Okay, so we're gonna move on to Doom 64. So Doom 64 was not the 64th Doom, though sometimes it may feel like it. It was released for the Nintendo 64, and that's choppy. So, like most titles for the Nintendo 64, I don't know, a lot. They put 64 in the name. Maybe obvious, but Doom 1 and Doom 2 were released for IBM PCs, or it was called IBM PCs at the time. Now it's called PCs, but so Doom 64 wasn't really considered a kind of mainline Doom game for years and years and years, because one, it was made for the Nintendo 64, and that was the only place it was available. And it also wasn't developed by id. It was developed by this company called Midway Games. They used they licensed Doom's engine from id, so I think you can tell like this still resembles Doom. They improved the sprites, they do new sprites, so the art was different. But it's still a 2.5D, the 2.5D Doom engine. They put some other improvements like color lighting, which you can see there. But yeah, so I didn't play it until relatively recently when there was like a fan port to the PC. Hey, it's the Cyber Doom. That thing was terrifying to fight for the first time in Doom 1, Episode 2, but very memorable. Anyway, so Doom 64 is considered a main Doom game now, primarily because the later Doom games and the ones we'll play next, like take their cue story-wise from the ending of this one. So it starts off with our friends, the Union Aerospace Corporation, once again experimenting and unleashing an invasion through their own hubris. And by the end, well, I'll talk about the end once I finish this. So, one neat thing is, even though it wasn't, it was different developers, they definitely took their cue from what it had done before and made some really sophisticated levels. So there's like more interesting puzzles, traps, mazes. There's a lot more going on. So this should be a neat little time capsule for kind of what was. A very, I guess, top tier. I don't know how I want to characterize it. First-person shooter for consoles. I think this came out in '97. So yeah, let's do this thing. So one other thing is it doesn't have the nightmare or even the same difficulty levels because. Again, Midway developed it. Oh, also Midway, so they're probably most well known for the Mortal Kombat series. They don't exist anymore. Midway got dissolved at some point, but they also, in the 80s, were publishing a lot of the arcade games that were popular, Space Invaders, things that were developed usually by Japanese developers, but they needed a US publisher, and so Midway was responsible for that in a lot of cases. But they also did develop arcade games in their own right later on, like, again, Mortal Kombat. Okay. We have our zombie men with a new look. One other thing I didn't really comment on before is because Doom, a lot of games took their cues from Dungeons and Dragons, and like D&D, you have armor points and health points, or hit points if you want to use the D&D terminology. And the way armor and health behave in each Doom game gets a little different. Eventually, by the later games, armor is just like a second health pool. Like, you basically like have armor and that depletes first, and then your health pool depletes. And it's kind of, an odd way to go up, have a game system. It's simpler for the player to keep track of. The original Doom games, armor would reduce damage to your health, but both would decrement if you got hit. It's just like your health would be going down less the more armor you had, but if you got hit, both are going to be going down. And it was like, you would probably have to memorize if you cared enough. I never did. Like, how much damage reduction a level of armor would grant you, but generally speaking, you want both armor and health high to be able to make it. Hey, it's our friend the Pinky. So this is not a new monster. It was around from Doom 1, but we just never saw it in the first level. But it's another kind of staple, iconic Doom monster. I think in the original manual it was just called Demon, which was not a useful designation because most of the monsters are demons. But it got the fan name Pinky because of its distinctive hue. And eventually that was adopted as its official name in later games. Alright, this is going to be a little tricky if I remember right. They kept all the sound effects, so even though everything looks different, it still sounds like the PC Doom games. Yeah, so the first levels didn't really characterize this in Doom 1 and 2, but later ones, kind of have the same kind of you're solving a maze type situation. Part of that was usually these colored key cards, so also not new to Doom 64. Usually the early Doom games, and well, even Doom 2016, would have like a system of colored key cards hidden throughout the map to open different colored doors. Always red, yellow, and blue. But sometimes you would have a map that would just have like red and blue. Well, I think so. Yeah, it's true, because this one's just kind of a blue key card. But anyway, part of, besides, you know, surviving the monsters in the map, part of it would be navigating this maze. So you'd also have an auto map, which I didn't remember to show off in 1 or 2, but it looked just like this too. You know, and so you'd be like, okay, where do I need to go? Where have I been? What's next? Where am I supposed to go? And usually you'd be, you know, kind of solving things like, okay, I see a blue door, and now I need to find the blue key. And sometimes they would do like clever things like, oh, the red key is behind the blue door, but you can see the the red door first, but not the blue one, and blah blah blah. And you'd have to figure it out. Oops, I got a lid up there. That has a lot of like something that just like hanging out behind a chicken wire. Kind of weird. Oh, it's the first level. I don't think I want to go too nuts on you. Obviously, this was meant to be played with the Nintendo 64 controller when it was made, which would probably be a lot more difficult. It's just usually a little easier to control things with a keyboard and mouse if you're used to it. Okay, so this next part's going to be an early example. Again, I don't think it's new to Doom 64. I think Doom 1 and 2 had a few places where this was done too. But Doom 2016 is going to be, like, we'll see this right in the first level and the next thing we play. And kind of a, this has a different connotation now, a lockdown mechanic where I'll hit that switch, I'll get blocked off and trapped in with a bunch of monsters, and you basically can't proceed or progress until you eliminate all the monsters. Doom 2016 did that a lot. Yeah, and it worked, but Doom Eternal tried to get away from that a little bit, but let's see how this goes. Main thing is I don't want to get trapped between 2 of these things, taking like double damage, which fortunately I'm not. Cool. Alright. And then open up another area. Alright. There's probably secrets in this level I'm missing. Ooh. What the? Oh, wow. That's something I've never done before, is see that there's a soul sphere somewhere. Probably won't be finding that today. But yeah, there's usually always like secret areas of a level that you're supposed to try and find if you wanted to, and it would usually have, you know, like more items. Sometimes you would get some of the more advanced weapons a little earlier if you found a secret area, so that's kind of also your motivation. But usually, like, you know, the early games would track. Well, all the new games would track like how many secrets you found, so you know, like if you missed any. It was very rare where I would play these and like be finding everything. It's also around this time I started writing for a website called linuxgames.com. I did some interview with, that was syndicated out to CNN around that time, and basically like went on record like, yeah, Doom's one of my favorite games. So it's a matter of posterity now. Oops, I did not let that do anything. So one thing you may have noticed is, even though it's not called Nightmare at this highest difficulty, does not respawn enemies, and that will continue. We're not going to see that anymore, which I'm fine with. I think you can make the enemies smart and difficult without having them come back on you. So yeah, so Doom 64 ends with the Doom Marine, usually maybe a fan named Doom Guy, deciding to keep fighting demons in hell because they just keep coming. So that's mostly why Doom 64 is well, there's another reason. Is considered part of the main Doom games now, just because that was a useful jumping off point for where they wanted to start Doom 2016, which we'll see here in a second. One other note, because this was built for a console that didn't really have lots of storage for save games like a PC would. Like a lot of other Nintendo games going back to the original Nintendo, the way you'd save your game is you would get a password like you're seeing on the bottom part of the screen, and that would basically like have encoded all of your stats, like what weapons you have, what your health was, what your ammo was, and it's just encoded there, and so you wouldn't need to store anything on the cartridge or the console, because you just enter that password and you're back to where you were. It's not a ton of information you're trying to save there. Alright, let's move on to Doom 2016. I'll keep calling it Doom 2016 because it was marketed under the name Doom, which we want to differentiate from Doom 1. So you might be wondering, well, that's a long gap between 1997 and Doom 2016. What happened in the interim? So it did make another Doom game in that gap period. 2004, Doom 3 came out, which was kind of... It's odd that Doom 3 has that designation and this one has just the designation Doom, because this is kind of more of a Doom 3 than that one was in terms of like it's continuing the story. Doom 3 was like a remake or a reboot, depending on how you want to characterize it, of Doom 1. Basically, it was like, oh, well, we have like technology is advanced in a decade. It was 10 years since Doom 1 had been made, and like because games were getting more sophisticated, they started to experiment with kind of more bringing things from film and television, cinematic techniques, storytelling. That weren't possible before. So like around this time you had like Half-Life and Halo coming out, and that's just shooters. Other types of games again were getting kind of more cinematic, so to speak. So you'd have like named characters, dialogue, and things like that. And so Doom 3, it basically took the approach of, well, the game we really wanted to make, if we could have, it would be this like kind of scary corridor shooter, and one of the technological advancements of Doom 3 was this lighting system that let them have like really like deep shadows. So it was kind of a haunted house game, and while kind of fun to play through at night when your headphones are on and you kind of feeling isolated, it wasn't really what people outside of it were thinking of as like a Doom, what was appealing about Doom. So it wasn't very well received, isn't very well remembered. Again, if you're going in like kind of expecting it to be what it is, then it's okay, but not something a lot of people are revisiting. And so it started working on a sequel to that anyway, that was basically revisiting Doom 2 Hell on Earth. Got a good chunk of the way through development, I guess, and then just decided, what, this isn't working. Started completely over from scratch, and by the time they got around to finishing their new approach, it was the year 2016, and this game came out. And while I kind of already kind of spoiled it to some degree if you didn't know, when the game starts, you don't really know like what the deal is. Even like by the time you finish it, they don't like explicitly state that, oh, you're still playing the same Doom guy from the original games. They actually later on in Doom Eternal they do explicitly say that, but either just kind of plop you in this situation that we're about to see, and you're just kind of like, okay, I don't know what's going on, and then you kind of get fed things over time as you play. But basically, Doom guy's been fighting in hell forever, and he got trapped and because the demons were just like, we can't stop this guy, he just keeps killing us. What can we do? And so all they can do is trap him. And then he gets recovered by our friends, the Union Aerospace Corporation, from a parallel universe. So they don't know anything about, the Hell Invasions or Doomguy or anything. Well, I mean, they do find out before the game because they trigger another invasion. But I guess the idea is that there's just like one Hell connected to every universe, and they could get invaded at any time if they like start mucking about with portals and other fun stuff. So let's move that game slot. And there's kind of like a winking humor to how this was done. That was pretty neat. The reception for Doom 2016 was very, very, very positive. But before release, everyone was super skeptical. Everyone had been burned by Doom 3 to some degree. So there was not a lot of hype before this game came out. It was kind of like, alright, hopefully it's good, but setting my expectations appropriately. I was blown away by it, especially by this first level. This is probably one of the most concise and to the point, like this is what this game is, first levels that I've ever seen in a game. And what's funny is apparently it came together very late in development too, so I think I heard that. I could be wrong, but alright, Nightmare's back. Let's do it. Yeah, but they basically just started building on the lore from the original games and just kept up with it. And they go really nuts.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
But yeah, the lore went kind of over the top more into but yeah, we don't know why we're in a slab yet. Find that out later. But we have possessed humans. We have a pistol. We have the UAC. So, Doom's back, baby. We don't know what's up with these people.
We have to contain this.
They're being cult weirdos. I mean, you can guess, but... So, hey, our armor. So the next important part, I think, is really sets the tone for what they were doing here very well, and then might be a bit of a death of the author type situation, because I think I heard, again, this could be wrong, that the way people interpreted this scene that here in a second was not what they actually intended, but and definitely Doom Eternal isn't like this, but basically kind of your what was standard in games by that point. Exposition dump starts, like this character starts just monologuing at us, and then let's see.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Samuel Hayden. I'm the head of this facility. I think we can work together and resolve this problem in a way that benefits us both.
Yeah, we're done with him. So yeah, the way that was interpreted, immediately by me and by most people from what I saw was, oh, this isn't Doom 3, this isn't other modern games where you're gonna get just monologue to death. You're just you know what you came to do first. Go do it. Alright, so that's our first new mechanic here. The glory kill. So basically, you damage an enemy enough, they go into a stagger state with a nice little highlight on them. and then you can get in melee range and melee them to death in a quick animation. The reason you want to do that, your incentive, is you get a little bit more health, and you always need more health. So, because there's a similar mechanic in Doom Eternal that you'll see in a little bit for ammo and for armor, but yeah, they introduced that here. Also because, you know, again, the technology will let them do just goofy animations that weren't possible before. So they went nuts with it. It was another thing where like the marketing kind of fell down, where like they didn't explain why you would want to do that, and so like all the trailers just had this montage of like gore, and it was like, okay, like Doom's always had this like cartoony, you know, Sam Raimi Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, you know, gore to it. You know, but it was always, you know, kind of cartoonish enough to where it didn't make you like nauseous, and I was just like, all right, you know, why are you emphasizing that? And it's like, oh, it's a gameplay mechanic that's important. It made it a little more palatable. Alright, we have our shotgun. And our old friend, the back HD. Lot meaner.
Lockdown in effect.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we're in our first lockdown arena. So basically, the gameplay reason for this is they wanted to like have you be in a room or, you know, an area that basically functions like, you almost think of it as like a skate park, and that's not my analogy. I think the developers themselves said that. But you know, you're just gonna have a bunch of monsters spawn in. You gotta take care of them. You don't have a lot of space to maneuver in, and you're not done until you're done.
Demonic presence at unsafe level. Lockdown.
I think they must have felt like they overused it though, because Doom Eternal doesn't have as much of those. But yeah, they're fun. So this thing's called a gore nest. It's also new, but it's basically the means to trigger the main encounter in the arena. So as soon as I yank a piece out of that, things are gonna go nuts. So hopefully we're ready to take care of this. In every Doom game, you had to move a lot, but in this one especially Doom Eternal, you cannot stay still. You will get dinged up very quickly if you're. These are stagger those guys. That's probably the difficult. Just kind of sneak up on them. Sorry, my brain space for talking is completely dropped away. As you can probably tell, they also are much more maneuverable than they ever were before, because now we have 3D space. I forgot to mention this, but you couldn't look up in Doom 1, Doom 2, or I guess Doom 61. Well, one, the engines couldn't support rooms over rooms, so like any given floor couldn't have a floor above or below it. So there wasn't really much of a reason to look up or down, but I'm low on ammo. But now there is, because it's full 3D, so yeah. What? Dang.
Demonic presence at unsafe level. Lockdown.
Yeah, no kidding. I need to. Alright. Hurry up. Alright, should just be one left. There you are. Oh, nope, 2. Looks like they butted. Stop climbing on columns. Jerk. Alright. No, you're not allowed to spawn another in. I need more ammo badly. Am I gonna find it? Yes.
Demonic presence at unsafe level. Lockdown.
But yeah, like the tongue-in-cheek tone, like there's safe levels for demonic presence, was also enjoyable. That kind of fell away a little bit, Doom Eternal. There wasn't as much like satire, I guess. So the tone was a little more serious, or less self-aware, I guess. All right.
He cannot be allowed to leave this place.
Let's see the
He would ruin everything.
reprise of the Doom 1, E1, M1 level music, and the title drop. And we'll call it. This
I'm
one
willing to take full responsibility for the horrible events of the last 24 hours, but you must understand. Our interest in their world was purely for the betterment of mankind. Everything has clearly gotten out of hand now, yes. But it was worth the risk, I assure you.
Yeah, Tim I don't agree. So yeah, I was like, as soon as I played this, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's back. So they did a great job, and then they followed it up with Doom Eternal, which is kind of you can think of it almost as like revisiting Doom 2 Hell on Earth, because it kind of goes back to a lot of the same situations. They bring back some of the monsters that hadn't been brought back yet, from that were just in Doom 2. Yeah. So, the one thing about Doom Eternal is they added a ton of more gameplay systems on top of what they even had in Doom 2016. So about halfway through the game, you're having to keep track of a lot. They basically like had a very specific idea of how they wanted you to play, and like took some lessons from how people were playing Doom 2016, and we're like, we don't really want people doing that. One thing is, they really didn't like apparently people using the same weapon a lot, because there wasn't a ton of reason to switch from probably like the super shotgun and what was called the Gauss rifle once you had them. Because usually those two would make short work of pretty much anything you'd run into. So here they kind of pretty severely constrain your ammo at the outset. They give you a mechanism to get ammo back. So our old friend the chainsaw returns and basically pinatas people into ammo. The monsters will have like weak points, which you'll see, or things that you can use if you use the right weapon to stagger them. And so, like when you're in a chaotic situation, like a Doom Arena area, you're having to be thinking about like, okay, like how much ammo do I have for this weapon? How much ammo do I have for this weapon? Okay, this enemy, it's best to use this and this, that, and the other thing. So they kind of go a little nuts with it, but it comes together really well once you get the hang of it. Just takes a bit. I do appreciate that they call me out as being an old fogey in my little medallion there. Alright, new slot, Ultra Nightmare. Then nice little warning, are you sure you want to do this? So like Doom 2016, they kind of drop you in the middle of a situation. The end of Doom 2016 has the guy that, kind of cyborg that runs the UAC throwing you into limbo. He's basically like, okay, you stopped everything and we can't just have you running around. So, because by this point, like, Doom Guy is just not human, not baseline human anymore anyway. And so they're just like, yeah, you're too dangerous. We're throwing you in timeout. And when this starts, you don't know how you got out of limbo, what's going on beyond the obvious, which we'll see.
Against all the evil that hell can conjure, all the wickedness that mankind can produce, we will send unto them only you. Rip and tear until it is done.
Mars again, but we will not be spending much time there this time. So, goodbye Mars for the moment.
Can't hold them off! I can hear them. Fall back! No! They're everywhere!
So yeah, you notice the theme of like, oh, we have better technology, let's go back and do this old thing again because now we can do it proper. Which obviously is coming into play here.
We must pray now. Pray that he is watching.
Yeah, like, we have no idea like why Doom Guy has like a space castle now.
If you can hear me, if you're out there.
Attempting to acquire the Hell Priest signal.
Nearly 60% of our planet has been consumed by the invaders.
We have the Hell Priest signal locked in.
What's
The
a Hell
target
Priest?
is marked, but the signal will not hold.
I mean, you get backstory later in the game, but at this point, don't really know. So I think I mentioned the glory kills get repetitive in Doom 2016. So that blade they just showed off isn't a normal weapon. You can't just like use it willy-nilly. It's just a tool they added to add more variety to the glory kill animations. So sometimes you like punch them, and other times you're swinging at them with that thing. Alright, those demons. So, it feels like they assumed you played Doom 2016 from a gameplay perspective because they just drop you right in the deep end right off the bat. There's not a lot of like tutorial time or get your feet, get your sea legs. Like, there's not going to be a arena. It's pretty heavy duty, like right after this next room. Okay, so this is something that was introduced in Doom 2016. We just didn't see it, but they added this mod system to all the weapons to basically like, you know, you hold down the right mouse button, or you can rebind it or whatever, but basically if you hold down the alt fire mode button, you'll turn the gun to another gun. So this gives a sticky bomb launcher onto the shotgun. I'm picking that first over the full auto because it's much more useful. Puts the enemies in a stagger state, which is nice. Alright, so I have 13 shotgun shells, I want 16, so chainsaw time. Those get a little gross, sorry. One other thing in the levels that Doom Eternal in 2016 also did was these little green highlights to indicate this is where you're supposed to go in the level. So there is an auto map, which is really nice. But, you know, they probably don't want people, like, staring at the auto map and kind of pondering where to go if you can avoid it, so little level designer trick. Alright, here we go. This will be another... I may not be talking much. I'm going to be trying to figure out how not to die. Whoa! Where are you? A lot of these like Quake style jump pads and they don't make a lot of sense as to why they're there. Oop. Oh, I need to get that. I almost bought it there. Oh man, things are not going well. God damn. Ganged up on it, need to get out of here. Alright, I'm gonna shut up for a moment. Party with that. They're also a lot smarter in this game. They will flank you, try and surprise you. I get rudely surprised a lot, which is fun because rather be fighting things that feel like they're thinking as opposed to just kind of dumb fodder. Now these zombies. There's one left. The zombies are dumb fodder, but at least the ones without guns. But alright, so we'll get any help. Wait, there's health potions over there. Okay, it was kind of a not great start, but I'm okay about things. So I mentioned like Doom Eternal adds a ton of lore. Some of it are in these like pages that you like tab and read. You can see like there's a ton of stuff here. There's also more cutscenes like the one we're about to see.
My soul remains guarded.
It's kind of weird after like 25 plus years of not having much story in Doom games. Doom 3 being the exception. This one, putting a lot of story in, relatively speaking, was kind of also a little jarring, but that's fine. So we're in a barge, like kind of like a container, on the back of a giant demon striding across the ruined earth. Things are not good. This was definitely kind of weird to be playing, basically as the pandemic lockdowns were starting.
Has been terminated.
Exchanging one
Demonic consumption
hell on
of
earth for
has
another.
been reduced by 36.8%. There are 2 hell priests remaining.
Okay, let's get the full auto because that's the only option. I'm gonna switch away from it though. I don't use that much. So we're about to meet the big jerk at the first level, which is a returning monster from Doom 2 that was not in the first level, called the Arachnotron. It's basically like a normal monster version of the Spider Mastermind from Doom 1. But also there was a Spider Mastermind at the end of Doom 2016 because, we always gotta echo the past. But they're mean, they're very mean in this. Hey, the Arachnotron. Whoa! Alright, cool. That went a little better at it. Whoa! Alright. A little better than normally when it goes out of the gate. Whoa! There's an imp over there, isn't there? There you are. They're just here. Come on, where'd the imp go? That's what I mean about surprises. Like they won't just like make a beeline for you. They'll try and like go somewhere you aren't expecting to drop on you. Alright. I need more ammo, so we'll do this. Alright, there we go. There's more shotgun shells right there. I didn't need it. Okay. Yeah, heavy cannon I don't really like using until I have a mod for it, so I don't want to. Lost track the other guy. So I think there was a brief moment in Doom 1 or 2, I forget already, where a monster killed another monster. So it was actually a tactic in those games to make the monsters fight each other, because they would get mad at each other, and then hopefully kill each other, or at least hurt each other. This one's weird because you will find the low-level enemies fighting each other. Whoa! You were not supposed to come all this way. No! Damn it. This is not going good. I might make a run for it. Need some help. Yes. Feeling a little better about things. Let's see if I can get super armor. Alright, here are my things over there. Alright, so one thing I probably didn't mention already is everybody is super maneuverable in this game, so you can't really like go anywhere and expect to like be hiding from monsters, so even though like that Arachnotron was very big, it can probably jump up here. Okay, so we're gonna go with this. Alright, we'll go find the Arachnotron. Oops. My luck. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? There. Oh, you're fine, guys.
Take a moment to look around.
Yeah. Oh.
Witness the beauty of the world.
Yeah, so you'll see a lot of like the monsters just banging away at each other, but not really hurting each other. But I'm kind of confused as to how that Arachnotron got its turret blown up. So I don't feel like I hit it. Oh, damn it. Gotta get track my fuel. Yeah, I know my ammo's. Whoa! That could have gone bad. Pause. Those are near misses here that are boding well for my chances. Oh, yeah. See, because it's Ultra Nightmare and your game is over whenever you die, this marks where previous death. So, no life kind of on Nightmare. Because definitely don't have a handle on this yet. I already beat the game on the lower difficulty, but Nightmare is another thing entirely. I'm ignoring those guys because there's no point wasting him on them right now. Then I could be able to catch up to them. Okay. Hey, it's our old friend, the colored key card. How you doing? Alright. That was my aim is bad. Ricky. Yeah, I'm coming back. Don't. Yeah, like the tone isn't quite as funny as the last game. I can't believe I made that. Come here. I need you so I get some help back. Man, I need that help. I get hit by one of those fireballs. I'm done so. I'm gonna cheese this. I'm gonna hope he comes around the corner. I'm not doing well. Alright. Oh, good, there's another one. Come on. No, don't stagger back. This way. Alright, back to business. Oh, that's what's happening. It's like there's supposed to be 3 of them. Right. Okay, cool. Hopefully my facial expressions are entertaining. Alright, that's good. Let's make this useful. Alright, we have grenades. I could make more use of that than I have been. So that's me talking to myself. Oops, I missed. Whoop. He's not a fan of me doing that. Alright, hopefully I don't mess up this jump. Yay! Okay, cool. Alright, Cacodemon time. They're also a returning enemy. They've been around from the beginning. Notice the theme here, they're very mean in this. If I didn't get that sticky grenade in its mouth, it would have been a bad time. Oh no. Yeah. No chill. Alright, oh no, we're not going that way. Shit. Alright. So I'm gonna get the armor up there. Leave me alone. No, this is not going well. No! Alright, let's have. Alright, where are you going? See what I mean about that? Alright. Oh man, I need ammo. Where are you? Oh, I want another one. That's not allowed. That's kind of bullshit. Alright, come on up. Whoa! Oh man, I'm out of shotgun ammo. No bueno. Alright. Hey, I'm over here. That's wasted. Wasted time. Alright, there was a... There you are. Piddly little armor. You never get to pilot that mech, or any of the mechs you see. It's background.
The UAC would like to thank you for your support during this transition. Your suffering continues.
That was a mistake. also has a lot more kind of jumping and platforming. It was okay, it's just, I think they just wanted something to entertain you in between firefights. Some of them get annoying. Alright, let's see if I can make this work. See if I can make this jump. Things. I don't really need that secret. It's enough to show that secret over here. Alright. Don't copy that floppy. I actually have no idea how you use those floppy disks, but it's kind of a neat little nostalgia reference. Turn around. Missed. Oh yeah, something else I've been coming on. They also added in this one what they call destructible demons. So it kind of give you feedback on how hurt each monster is. And you can see like chunky bits flying off them. So even though like all the monsters are meaner, tougher, have more hit points, it would feel weird if you were like just pumping ammo into them and like not getting any kind of feedback. So they added this like system where like parts of them fly off, and now I know, oh, that's one I've hurt, he's almost dead, and that one is unhurt. Not that it matters. Oh, I should have chainsawed him. Oh well. Okay, we're getting towards the end of this. There's like 3 more arenas. I might make, I might not. We'll see.
Forget about the future. To suffer is to be present.
Come on, what are you doing? Oh, damn it! That's what he was doing.
The UNC. Because it takes a lot of hard work to make prophecy happen.
Stand up or what? It's weird, like he got bugged or something. Oh, I should have checked something. Oh boy. You guys gotta stop showing up. Oh, damn it. Oh, that helped. That saved me. Whoa. Kinda. Still pretty hurt. There's health kit. Alright. Grab this one too. Alright, where'd you go? Man, you're fast. Too fast. I have some shotgun shells. Now I can do this too. Oh, just launching grenades like crazy.
Forget about the future.
That's some pretty good fights. Chainsaw you.
The UAC, because it takes a lot of hard
He'll hit on his head. I'm not jumping in that pit. What the fuck? Oh, there you go. Where are you? Oh! Shit! I just died. Oh no, I'm alive. How? Holy cow. I am in bad shape. Please have yes. Thank God. Oh, not. This is not good. Not good, not good, not good. Oh man, I'm probably not going to pass this part, but that's okay. We seem close to the line. Shit. I need those. No! Yeah. That Arachnotron always gives me trouble. Alright, well, that was pretty close to the end, so it's not like we've missed out on much, but maybe one day I will have an Ultra Nightmare run that goes a little further than that. Anyway, hope this was enjoyable, so take care.